This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Regina League.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Super excited today to be talking to Dr. Kenneth Haas. He is the owner of Haas Wellness Center. Hello, Dr. Haas. How are you today?
Hi, Regina. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. I have heard of you for a very long time. I think you've been in the South Charlotte Arboretum area for 19 years now?
19 years, yep.
Wow. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You can go back as far as you like and, what got you into this industry?
I got into this industry because I was a gymnast, and in college I was an international competitor in the 70s. I'm pretty old. I'm about to turn 70 myself. At the end of my career, I was really beat up pretty badly, and I became a professional coach. And I was in such bad shape in my early 20s that when I would get out of bed, I would need to warm up, to move my ankles around and my wrists around. And I used to walk down the stairs holding onto the railings on both sides. And I'm going to cut the story a little short. I ended up in this wonderful practitioner's office. His name was Dr. Randy Shotsky, and he put me back together. And during this time I was coaching, and he got me to a point where I could actually go back, and I did some masters competitions. And it was quite miraculous. And I decided at one point I wanted to be like him, and I changed careers. I went back to school, and I had to take some basic science classes and got my degree in chiropractic, and then set out on my own.
That is super cool. What kind of gymnastics did you do?
Well, I was an all-rounder. I did, I was trying to get on the Olympic team, and the stuff that you watch on TV. I did it all. It was a little different back then. We didn't have spring floors, and we didn't have cool mats to land on. But I was in love with that.
So, just in the last few years, have I understood that chiropractic health can do so much more than just crack your back. So tell us a little bit about, going to that doctor and how it works, and how did that relieve all of that pain from the wear and tear?
So he was not the first chiropractor I'd been to. The first chiropractor I'd been to was kind of a, if you want to call him a backcracker, and he was very, very, they call those straight chiropractors, stick to the spine. The difference with Dr. Shotsky was that he was more of a holistic guy, and his practice was based on something called applied kinesiology, which is the use of muscle testing as a diagnostic tool. And it was discovered in the 60s by a guy named Dr. George Goodhart, who was an incredible person with a very inquiring mind. And he found out that there were relationships between muscles and organs and acupuncture meridians and different other reflexes in the body, lymphatic reflexes and vascular reflexes. And so, in essence, if you can turn on everybody's muscles or turn on a patient's muscles, there's a reflection into their health in general, and vice versa. If you have a weak muscle, let's say your pectoralis sternal muscle is weak, it's actually associated with liver function. It doesn't say you have a specific disease, but it just says something's going on there. And then you can look at different factors of that, such as nutrition or the meridian flow or the nerve or lymphatic or vascular activity. And you can change, if you strengthen the muscle with those things, a lot of time the organ will respond. And so you can actually help people with disorders gain their health. So a lot of what our practice is that sort of those sorts of patients, people with digestive problems and hormone problems. And I saw 2 people today with skin issues that were related to digestive problems and toxicity. And so there's a lot of different factors that can be evaluated using kinesiology that are more considered outside the standard healthcare protocols.
Well, you've just piqued my interest because I did a kinesiology test probably about 20 years ago, and I'm like, okay, what the heck? It seemed a little out there for me, so it's based on science. I'm very fascinated by this.
It is based on science. So there's a neurological connection. Let's say you're just going to do a straight arm test. Your brain tells your shoulder muscle, your deltoid muscle, to turn on, and then you could look at different reflexes. So, for instance, you can only see my face, so I could put my finger right there. That's the end of the beginning of the bladder meridian. So if I got a weakness on that, there's something wrong with the bladder meridian. It may or may not be associated with the bladder, but it could also be associated with the spine because the bladder meridian goes down either side of the spine. So there's a lot of interconnections that are possible. And a lot of what I do is detective work and trying to figure out what actually goes together.
So I was tested like specifically for foods. Is that part of your testing?
Yes, you can test for food sensitivities, allergies. You can also find foods that could be beneficial, so it could work in either direction. So if we go back to the liver, I have a weak muscle in the liver. What foods would make that better? So there's certain foods that are have the nutrients that the liver needs. There's certain foods that help with detoxification. That's the primary purpose of liver function. Mm-hmm. And so it's very real.
It's fascinating. I am very intrigued by the whole idea again. Okay, so does everything for your new patients start with that testing?
So we do a very comprehensive exam. A new patient, when they start in our office, we start with a 20-page questionnaire, your history, your family history, your habits, and then there's about 10 pages just of symptoms in different groups that help us identify which symptoms which systems may or may not be functioning. We do some standard things. We get people's vital signs, their height and their weight and their blood pressure. We do blood pressure sitting and standing to see if your adrenal function is good. We do some biofeedback scans that look for food sensitivities and nutritional deficiencies. And then I do a structural exam because I'm a chiropractor. I always do that. And then I do the kinesiology, and that looking to see what's turned on and what's not turned on and what may or may not be something that could be beneficial.
That's amazing. So the toxic screening, detox, all ties into the results of that testing?
Yes. So we do a couple of toxin scans, and if something shows up, then we might run lab tests. So we could run, let's say, a hair mineral analysis looking for toxins in the hair like aluminum and mercury and lead and arsenic and cadmium. And that also shows us nutritional deficiencies like calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, copper, zinc. All those things are on that test. There are other toxin tests you can do for things like Roundup. Roundup's a big deal these days, genetically modified foods. There's a toxic test that does all kinds of chemicals like styrene that comes from styrofoam and plastics. And so we start with the exam that may lead to other things, blood work or saliva tests or hair analysis. And then we start to make conclusions.
Right. So it sounds like a series of visits. It doesn't all happen in that first visit.
No, a lot happens in the first visit. At least we get an idea what we're going to do going forward. And I always like to tell my patients, here's what I found. Here's where we can start. These are more things that we may need to do, because everybody wants to know what everything costs. And that's a really big deal for everybody, unless you're a billionaire. And I've seen two in my 40 years in practice.
with a B,
Two billionaires, with a B.
Wow.
Yeah. And those guys didn't care what it cost, but everybody else does. So we have
Yep.
to try to make things, work for people. And it's hard sometimes. Some people have trouble with that because we don't do insurance.
Don't do it. So this is a self-pay.
It's always self-pay. Yeah.
So what sets you apart? You fall into the world of chiropractic care, but obviously, as we just heard, you're so much more than that. So what sets you apart?
Well, I think part of it is that holistic point of view that we look in as many places as we can for answers. We don't try to just patch up symptoms. We try to find causative factors. And we spend a lot of time on our visits. Kind of a short visit for me is 30 minutes. And then we do a lot of good follow-up, and I give people 24/7 access to me. Every new patient gets my cell number. And so you're home and you're not sure if can I eat this? And they send me a picture on their phone, and yeah, that's okay. Or let's try something different.
Well, in the new year, everybody's always, looking for their health, and really getting to the root of things is definitely a new path that I've been exposed to, instead of just Band-Aids, take meds, really trying to figure out what's going on in your body.
Yes. And there's a time and a place for everything. And, if you sever a limb and don't come to me, go to the emergency room. And people do need to take medications, and sometimes, and that's appropriate. But if you can find something that's a little less risky, and medications all come with risks, that would make more sense, I think.
What misconceptions are there that you find in talking to patients?
I think the biggest one is that there's not a scientific basis for what we do. And I really, applied kinesiology, there's an International College of Applied Kinesiology. It's been around for, more than 50 years, I believe. And it's all based on research, and research papers are, hundreds of research papers go into it every year. We use functional medicine. There's information on that. Some of the therapies we use, like I use one therapy, it's pulse magnetic field therapy. It was discovered by Nikola Tesla over 100 years ago. And there's thousands of studies on it. It used to be very popular in medical care, and they kind of dropped it in the 50s and 60s when medicine really moved over to using pharmaceuticals almost exclusively. They didn't used to do that. A lot of people don't realize that medical doctors used to actually tell people what they should eat or not eat. And
How about that?
And there were other things that I have some very old medical books that are just really super useful for remedies that they just don't have time to talk about. My son-in-law is a medical doctor, and he always complains about how he has to get out of the room because he works for a corporation.
Yeah. How true that is. Well, you're, I love what you do. Very, very intriguing. So when you're not running this amazing office, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, when I was 8, I started taking guitar lessons. So I'm almost 70, so I've been playing for a long time. And I've been playing in a rock band for the last 15 years or so here.
Wow.
We get
Give
together.
me a shout out. Who is it?
It's the D.B. Cooper Band. And if you're listening, guys, we need to get together and play soon. It's been a little while.
Oh, what is y'all's go-to song?
Oh, gee, we play Rolling Stones and Van Morrison and Eagles and Allman Brothers and, classic rock.
Yeah. Back when the really good music was happening. I'm with you on that.
So, yes.
Yeah. So how do our listeners find you, Dr. Haas?
So we're on the web at haaswellnesscenters.com. And that's a great place to get information. And you can click on any page and there's a link if you want to come see us. And I always recommend people do a free consultation. We do a 15-minute consult to see if we're a good match for you before you spend any money. I think that's a good thing to do. You can call us at 704-837-2420. And you can always leave a message if we're not here. And you can message us from the website too if you have a question.
And your physical location is across the street from the Arboretum Shopping Center in South Charlotte, in those medical offices. I believe it's off on Springbank.
Springbank Lane. It's Arboretum Office Park. We're directly across from Walmart.
Gotcha. Well, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I think it's just amazing, your story and what sets you apart. So thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Regina. It's nice to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpsouthcharlotte.com. That's gnpsouthcharlotte.com or call 980-351-5719.